the talent, without a doubt, is there. The wins aren't. 0-2 in the playoffs. He's lost the playoff games. That's probably his biggest knock, right? You have to end up winning a playoff game.
But Justin Herbert, no one can name his starting 3 receivers last year. That has to be a part of the conversation.
But you know what? That's something that, not even talking about last year with Justin Herbert, that's something that's kind of plagued him throughout his career.
I would tell you guys, out of the top 10, it's probably the worst situation as far as people to get the ball to and success. Out of the top 10, it's not even close. Herbert's been in the most difficult one and the least supported one than the other guys in the top 10.
The Chargers have made very clear, it is not Justin who has held them back from reaching great heights over the past 5 or 6 years with him. It is the rest of the franchise needing to be on Justin's level. Jim Harbaugh has made it clear how strongly he believes in Herbert as one of the very best players in the entire NFL.
From salary cap hell to playoff nightmares, and no, I'm not talking about the New Orleans Saints. Jim Harbaugh's Los Angeles Chargers have been fixing the mess they inherited from the previous regimen, and after a disappointing postseason appearance in 2024, are looking to build back stronger in 2025. In an offseason where the rest of the AFC West took some big swings, the Chargers have been quietly building a monster that will take the league by surprise when they kick off in Brazil. And just in case you haven't heard yet, this is how the LA Chargers are building a team that nobody in the NFL is going to want to play this year. Now, what makes the Los Angeles Chargers such a compelling team is all the progress that they've made since head coach Jim Harbaugh took over. It may sound crazy to solely credit the coach, but Harbaugh brought an entirely new regimen to LA with him that has played a huge part in turning things around. Harbaugh brought in one of his brother's longtime collaborators, former Ravens director of personnel, Joe Ortiz, in to be the new general manager from 2024 onwards. Ortiz inherited a messy situation to say the least, as the previous administration had restructured multiple key contracts in 2023, leaving the Chargers around $45 million over the cap in 2024. And even looking at them structurally when he did take over, they were a team that was in win now mode. In reality though, although they were trying to be a win now team, they had barely won 5 games the season prior and held a top 5 pick. Ortiz did brilliantly in reconciling these differences, as in Keenan Allen, Eric Kendricks, and Mike Williams were all let go, and Corey Linsley did retire. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert, Derwin James, and Trey Pipkins all restructured their deals. And that's the best part too. Not only did it resolve all the cap issues that they had in 2024, but heading into 2025, it set them up even better. You see, their 11-6 record far exceeded expectations for the Chargers in the first year under Harbaugh. Making the playoffs while in the same division as the Chiefs, it was no small task. But last year's rookie class, headlined by Joe Alt and Ladd McConkey, was electric in LA and helped make Harbaugh's return to the NFL all the more seamless. The vastly experienced, the fairly inexperienced Jesse Minter, one of Harbaugh's Michigan staff he brought to LA with him, was sensational in 2024, as the Chargers finished with the best scoring defense in the country. LA's 5th round corners in Still and Cam Hart were very impressive in their rookie efforts, as the Chargers rebuild appeared to be nearing completion. As we all know though, all the hype kind of came to a screeching halt in the playoffs in Houston. The Texans made absolutely light work of the Chargers in a 32-12 loss on wildcard weekend, with Justin Herbert tossing 4 picks in easily his worst game of the season. The team falling apart in this manner was not a good look. Despite all of their clever cap-saving moves and savvy drafting, they were still the same old Chargers at the end of the day. And then when you even dive deeper into their 2024 record, it's honestly even a little bit more damning. They were 2-6 against playoff teams, and those 2 wins came against the Denver Broncos, casting even further doubt on LA's actual talent level. And I mean, truthfully, all of a sudden, reality actually hit this team. Not only was this team just kind of the postseason choke artist that they had always been, but they were really nowhere close to making a serious playoff push, especially not after losing so many key players in the offseason. That's the thing though, there was one key detail that most fans were missing. And we have to go back to what I said earlier in the video. Remember how I said Joe Ortiz set this team up perfectly in 2025? Well, he diagnosed their big money, long-term veteran deals as the issue of the previous offseason, and in early March continued his trend of rectifying the issue by releasing Joey Bosa. And don't get me wrong, when healthy, Bosa can be an absolute difference maker, but hanging on to an injury-prone 30-year-old with a $36 million cap hit in 2025 is simply just bad business. Letting go of Bosa, as well as D-tackle Panua Ford, cornerback Christian Fulton, and wide receiver Josh Palmer, combined with their 2024 cost-cutting methods, saw LA enter this offseason with plenty of cash, $91 million in cap space to be exact. After factoring in obviously other expenses and new additions, that figure is closer to $27 million ahead of the opening kickoff, but the goal of making a younger, slimmer, more flexible roster was keeping Horowitz busy. And thus, it brought on some vast improvements in the team structure in 2025. The Chargers' biggest move of the offseason came on the offensive line, signing right guard Mekhi Becton to a 2-year, $20 million deal. Becton came to the league as a highly touted tackle and initially underwhelmed in New York. However, he won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia last year once he was moved to the interior of the line in what was a career season for the Louisville alum. With second-year right tackle Joe Alt and Pro Bowler Rashawn Slater bookending the O-line, Becton will be able to stick to his favored guard position and play his best ball, instantly improving an interior offensive line that saw the highest knockdown rate of 2024 according to PFF. LA then further improved their offensive line depth by signing veteran center Andrew James to a 1-year deal. More veteran talent also arrived on offense in the form of Tyler Conklin, also on a 1-year deal, but perhaps the biggest story came in the backfield for the Chargers offense. Najee Harris joins on a $9 million 1-year contract from Pittsburgh, where he enjoyed 4 spectacular 1,000-yard rushing campaigns, but one of Harris's best qualities is his availability. 1-year deal, so say Harris can't replicate his Steelers form, despite playing behind a far better line than he had previously, LA won't. Yes, it is worth noting that at the time of this video, Harris is not actually with the team because of a mysterious eye injury that came as a result of a firework accident, and not much information has been released, but hopefully he will return to team activities very soon. Joining him on the plane from Pittsburgh is cornerback Dante Jackson, who himself got a 2-year deal in the City of Angels, and Jackson's 5 interceptions last season were more than anyone on the Chargers roster, as he joins a loaded secondary spearheaded by All-Pro safety Derwin James. Benjamin St. Juste was also added from Washington for further depth in the DB room. Then in an attempt to fill the Ford-shaped hole in the line, Ortiz signed D-tackles Jones and Deshaun Hand on 1-year deals. Jones had a career-high 3 sacks last season and should prove useful as a rotational piece up front, while Hand is more of an asset in run defense. Most notably though this offseason was a 1-year extension to Khalil Mack, who they essentially had to talk out of retirement. In very few other circumstances, it doesn't really make sense to give $18 million to a 34-year-old linebacker, but Khalil Mack is an important veteran leader for this defense who can still constantly produce in his 12th NFL season. Add in the fact too that they don't have Joey Bosa on the books, and there is a noticeable lack of elite pass rushing talent for the Chargers. Truthfully, this free agency haul was packed with low-risk players on short-term deals, and Ortiz exactly didn't take any huge swings either in terms of name or spending, but instead rather made sensible moves to raise the floor of this team and experiment with personnel for Harbaugh to utilize. Chargers fans have pleaded for more weapons for Justin Herbert to aim at, especially during an offseason that saw high-profile vets like Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf all move around. LA's only wide receiver signing was Mike Williams, who randomly retired in July. And I mean, it's also important to remember Ortiz's strategy here, as these low-risk moves have the Chargers projected for over $100 million in 2026 cap space, the largest figure in the league. You can tell they're certainly building with that in mind, ready to take some big swings only when they can afford it, unlike the previous regimen. And yes, although it may mean less flashy signings in 2024 and 2025, the Chargers are finally sustainably building their roster to be competitive for years and years to come. Oh, and that's all without even mentioning the 2025 class that they just brought in the draft, which is going to make them undoubtedly so much more exciting. In the first round, LA took Amarion Hampton out of UNC, the perfect running back to partner with Najee Harris and potentially take over as the season progresses. Hampton was slightly overshadowed by Ashton Genty in this year's draft class, but he is a phenomenal prospect in his own right. The former Tar Heel is a 3-down back in the truest sense of the term, averaging 138.3 rushing yards and 31.1 receiving yards per game in his last year of college. Splitting snaps with Najee Harris should keep both backs fresh and ready to go, and with an improved offensive line ahead of them, could we actually see this year's AFC's answer to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery? Add in the fact too that last year in typical Harbaugh fashion, the Chargers tried to establish themselves as a run-first offense, having multiple running backs on the field at the same time as often as possible, but it didn't quite pan out as shown in this stat right here. But that's where Hampton and Harris come into the picture. With a vastly improved just running back stable and offensive line, the outcome of just using 21 and 22 personnel much more will help this offense out so much. In the second round, the Chargers then took another weapon for Justin Herbert by selecting Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. Harris logged 1,030 receiving yards in 2024 despite playing in just 8 games, an insane output from the big-bodied receiver. He has a similar profile to Ladd McConkey, is the out-and-out wide receiver 1 in his second season, while Mike Williams' sudden retirement leaves this group without a clear veteran anchor. Third and fourth rounds, LA chose to beef up the D-line, first with Jameer Caldwell out of Oregon, then Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. Caldwell's a big body who can clog up the middle of the field in the run game, while Kennard made a name for himself getting after the quarterback in college, both areas of the field where the Chargers had suffered big losses earlier in the offseason. Then in round 5, they went back to arming Herbert with another wide receiver and a tight end in Lambert Smith and Gadsden II, the later of which was considered a huge steal. In the 6th, they also got some offensive line depth help with tackle Branson Taylor out of Pitt, before adding safeties RJ Mickens and eventually Tre'Kiz Bridges in the 7th. All in all though, I think this draft really did plug up, or at least try to cover up some of the holes that are on this team this year, as well as adding some options, or just extra options I should say, for Justin Herbert on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, we already got a glimpse of what Herbert's full potential looked like last year, and with better weapons at his disposal, Chargers fans may finally get to see their guy unleashed this year. The AFC West has gotten significantly tougher this offseason though, with the Broncos building on a surprisingly strong 2024 campaign, the Raiders finally getting a starting caliber quarterback to run an improved offense, and the Chiefs coming back healthier with a thirst for revenge. The division is no doubt going to be more competitive than last year, but thanks to the Chargers remaining $27 million in cap space for 2025, they could easily acquire some veteran talent during the season that takes them to the next level and propels LA back into the postseason. Once they're there, it will only be a matter of actually showing up this time and learning from their mistakes in 2024, especially on offense. But with what looks to be the AFC's best 1-2 punch in the backfield, ready to run it down anyone's throat, a defense stacked with vets like ballhawk Derwin James and the relentless Khalil Mack, all led by a truly elite signal caller in his prime in Justin Herbert, Harbaugh and the new regiment have built a team that nobody will want to play against this year.